Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are finally here. We have confirmation from credible leakers that Generation 9 DLC is on its way. But what exactly will be in this DLC? Hey everyone, it's Dusty Go-Goat. Welcome back to my headcanon. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet have redefined the franchise, but there's still so much these games could offer through DLC. Historically, every modern Pokemon game, third version, or DLC has introduced a new Pokemon to some capacity. I am very confident we will see new Pokemon added into a Generation 9 DLC expansion. I would love to see new Paldean forms, new evolutions, convergent species, or even new Paradox Pokemon. It's safe to say we will see new Pokemon in the future, as well as returning legacy Pokemon. But where in Paldea will these new Pokemon call home? I believe DLC will expand the Paldea map to feature 2 to 4 new unexplored areas. And it's very likely that one of these new areas will include access to Kalos. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Today we're going to figure out where the DLC will take place, what Pokemon will inhabit that location, and by the end we even get into some Generation 10 speculation. I can't wait for you to listen. Here's the full conversation with my friend SP. But first, whenever I'm not shiny hunting, I'm outside exploring. But this time of year is cold, and it can be difficult to find the correct shoe for the right adventure. Thankfully, today's amazing sponsor, Vessi, ensures that my feet stay dry and warm, so I can keep on doing what I love all year long. Vessi shoes are 100% waterproof and snowproof. That's because they're made from this soft material called Dymatex, allowing these shoes to be comfortable, lightweight, and breathable. Even the grip on these shoes are designed for all weather conditions. Whether I'm on a mountain, in the city, or traveling with my starter, these sneakers look great and give me the freedom to explore new places. With Vessi, I can now be as comfortable outside as I am gaming in my studio. Right now, Vessi is giving away a pair of free socks of your choice to the first 100 shoes sold using my code SOCKSDustyGoGoat. Check out their early Black Friday sale at Vessi.com/DustyGoGoat. Believe me, get yourself some Vessi shoes. What's up, SB? How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Super excited to be here. So excited to talk DLC. Well, this is just something so fun to talk about. Thank you so much for having me on.
So we could be getting anywhere between 2 to 4 DLC packs. This would be like 2 to 4 DLC locations, brand new places, whether it's in Paldea or in another location that is just kind of off the outskirts in the oceans surrounding Paldea. So just like Galar, I think Paldea is also hiding something underneath its clouds, right? In the official map of Paldea, you can see in the top right corner, actually in all the corners, there are clouds. But all right, let's jump into the first major location for DLC that I think 100% we're gonna get. It's definitely happening. This would be the southern area, the southern border. It's some sort of territory within Kalos, whether it's actually southern Kalos or it's a location or a territory south of Kalos. I don't know how it's technically gonna be categorized, but it's definitely gonna be of that location. 100% it's going to be near Cloud City. I think it'd be really cool if there was some sort of tie-in to the train station. Like that's something that we saw in X and Y. It was such a tease. Literally 10 years ago, we literally 10 years ago today, like we all thought we were going to have some sort of access to to another region in a third version. You know the story, right? So I think that'd be really cool if there was some sort of train station, whether it goes to Cloud or if it just goes even just a train station that accesses that area. I think would be really cool. I think we could also see like a return of the Friend Safari. That'd be kind of cool.
That'd be really
I think,
I love
right? Like that happened one time. We don't even get safari zones anymore.
I loved it. I shiny hunted so much there.
We do see that usually with DLC or like a third version, there's an addition of a new type of shiny hunting method, and I think this could be it. And also, I also feel like the multiplayer aspect would actually benefit from a Friend Safari.
But I'm gonna say something totally wild here, because if you look at Kalos, the map of Kalos, the region, you look at Paldea, the map of Paldea, the region, we know that there's clouds in Paldea. We know that it's mountainous in the bottom of Kalos. That's that thing that's been...
It's known.
It's come around, yeah. What if, and it's going to be the wildest thing I think I've said on YouTube, but what if, so you keep the mountains there, right? It's not an easy trek to get to Kyloud City. Kyloud is the ending place of this DLC. You have to go through the mountains, and you're going to have to trek. You're going to have to fight the elements like you do in Legends Arceus. You're going to have to fight the Pokemon like you do in Legends Arceus. You can bring back secret bases like they did in ORAS. You can do it in multiplayer with your friends, so that way you guys can build bases together. You can go out and fight these Pokemon together, and it's tough. It's dangerous. You got to really put in the effort to get to Kyloud, which is the final spot on this.
What you're describing to me kind of feels like what actual post-game content should feel like. This feels like the red battle, like climbing up Mount Silver. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting. I will say, I do love the idea of secret bases returning. I don't really know if I don't really think that would necessarily work with the current engine. Something that I really, really want to see desperately is collision forms of Scarlet and Violet Pokemon. Okay, it doesn't have to be Scarlet and Violet Pokemon. It can truly be Pokemon, like any legacy Pokemon. But collision forms of really any Pokemon would be so cool. And you might be saying, I mean, you're probably thinking or writing in the comments right now, like, that doesn't make any sense. How can there be collision Pokemon if they don't exist in the Kalos-based games? The way I kind of see it is like we don't have access to Southern Kalos, so there could be Pokemon there that have these new forms. That's one way to do it. SB, like, are there any Pokemon that you think could benefit from a possible collision form?
Man, collision regional form. So it kind of has to be, I feel like, Pokemon that don't already exist, that are from Kalos.
Yeah.
Don't exist in Paldea. There has to be Friend Safari Pokemon that were not able to be found in the rest of Kalos, that were just Friend Safari Pokemon. Okay, so that would be very cool. All those to be Colosian. I mean, like, those could have Colosian forms where they were brought into the Friend Safari. They have left the Friend Safari and now exist in the mountains in southern Kalos, or that area in between where it's rough, it's dangerous. I mean, from what we know, it's cloudy, it's foggy, it's mountainous. Like, it could very well be a dangerous area to live in. And these Pokemon, having not originally been from Kalos, were treated there and have since developed new forms. I mean, I think that that's just a slam dunk of an idea. Like, I think it works really well because, like, they don't exist in Kalos. Like, they're not supposed to be in Kalos. So
and if that is too much for Game Freak to commit to, what are their new Pokemon in Paldea, but they're not like Paldean Pokemon, they could just give us Paldean Pokemon of Kalos Pokemon. Like, it's technically Southern Kalos, but it's like on the Paldea side, right?
And another thing to mention too, in my opinion, is that we know that Kyloud City is based on Lyon, France, Lyon, France. So there are a lot of cities around Lyon that could be so good, even if you don't want to do it's dangerous. You just want to get rid of the mountains, you want to get rid of the clouds, it's open area, it's nice and pretty. There's so many cities that you can bring into the games that would have such good cultural significance and be beautiful. Like, if you brought in Nice or Nietzsche, however you want to say it, Nice, France, if you're an English speaker, Bordeaux, Toulouse, like, there are so many French cities that are around Lyon that could be brought in through DLC. That would be so fun to play because they're so culturally significant to France, but they hadn't really had an area in Kalos to shine because they're around Lyon, which is around Cloud City, the last city in the entire region, the most southern cities. So it'd be very cool to let those cities shine and kind of let this be, which is another great point. I think it's something we could talk about. Let this be the third version for Kalos. You know what I mean? Like, we were robbed so hard on that.
It's totally true. I mean, like I said, it's like Kalos came out 10 years ago, and we're not like it's currently not lined up for a remake for another 10, 20 years, 15 years maybe. Like, it's a long way away. And it's kind of a pet theory I was thinking about is, like, we always create patterns for Game Freak to follow, and then they immediately break them, right? We get two things in a row, then they break them. I do like that. I think what we are all expecting right now is either, a Johto remake, which I think we're going to get, or a Unova remake, right? Either of those two games are next up in line. How wacky would it be if they said, actually, we're gonna give Kalos some love, right? And what that kind of does is, like, break this stale formula where maybe we even get, maybe we get some sort of callback to Galar in like 5 years. I don't know. Like, if you can break the formula a little bit, it kind of gives them a lot more freedom to explore new types of Pokemon games going forward.
Yeah. And as you hit 9 and 10 regions, I mean, the ability to pull from, because in reality, when you were at the 4th generation and you had already remade the 1st generation, you only had the 2nd and the 3rd to pick from. Now when you have 9 or 10, you have so many more that you could be like, Gen 6 gets some love. Gen 2 again, Let's do Gen 7 this time. You know, you can kind of pick and choose from where you want to do these things and kind of give them highlights, give them special Pokemon, because you have a arsenal to pick from. You have a vast array of generations that you can really bring in and pick characters, pick Pokemon, pick.
And I feel like the Pokemon Company, like their mission is to, like it's in their best interest to keep all of these other regions and games and Pokemon's experiences, right? Like in the forefront of fans' minds, right? So that's why I feel like Johto is next, because it's the game that was, it's like the only region right now. I guess it's Johto and Unova are the only regions not in 3D. They haven't been touched in so long. But Kalos is also right there, right? Kalos is literally next. So like if you're gonna skip Kalos, and we started talking about this because Kalos never got a third version, right? Give Kalos the love. Go back to Johto, go back to Unova, and then maybe we talk about Kalos in Hoenn in 20 years from now. I don't know, but let's get back on track. We have the Balearic Islands to talk about. You mentioned this earlier, but you kind of have some theories about huge potential for regional forms. SB, do you want to give us a little bit of a geography lesson on the Balearic Islands?
In Spain, there's some islands off that called the Balearic Islands. There's Menorca, there's Majorca, there's Ibiza, and they would be amazing for DLC. They're right off the coast, and it would allow for some serious fun and just interesting adaptations into this game if they would allow it to be the DLC. A lot of the animal population that lives there, first off, is not naturally occurring there. There's not a lot naturally occurring on these islands, but humans love to go there and to visit there, to travel there, and with that, they brought animals with them. So there's all kinds of animals that wouldn't naturally be occurring there that now live there and have adapted to living on these islands. We already have Pokemon that adapt to live in new situations through regional forms or even through convergent evolution.
And what strikes me about Scarlet and Violet is that there really weren't that many regional, like Paldea regional Pokemon. I feel like they are saving those entries for the DLC 100%.
Yeah, like actually Paldean, there's only Wooper and Tauros, and like so like there's just not a lot of Paldean Pokemon. But yeah, so there is so many options though if you go to these islands, because again, a lot of animals have been brought over by people and have adapted here. You could say the same thing where you could say like these islands are a popular tourist destination. They're a popular like getaway for the people not only of Paldea but Kalos and Galar. And you could even say like people in Alola that come to Paldea visit these islands frequently because it reminds them of home. So you could say things like that, and you could allow for some really cool regional forms. I think it'd be awesome if we got regional forms of Alolan Pokemon, like because it's a real twist on, instead of giving it to Kanto and Johto like they usually do, like giving it to an Alolan Pokemon. Like give me Paldean Jupiter, give me Paldean Mudsdale. You know what I mean? Like there's so many cool Pokemon that you could pull from and just really take advantage of the fact that like in the real world there's a place with such great biodiversity and ecological significance.
You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so like I kind of said earlier, like there a lot of the animals that are there don't naturally occur there, and that is the basis of what regional forms are. Like why did Raticate become a dark type? Because it was brought in when it wasn't supposed to be there. Why, like, and the list goes on and on. 85-90% of the animals in the Balearic Islands, that's what has happened. So like the ability to have regional forms is just astronomical, and
immense. It's like you don't even know where to begin. It could literally be anything.
And like with it being an island chain, you can bring in so many different regions, because it's not a, like you could do like, oh, this isn't a it's not a recognized region, but it's a very, very common place for all regions to come and to sometimes they release their Pokemon, sometimes their Pokemon stay here longer than they think, sometimes people have extended stays here, things like that. So you could do like any region. It doesn't have to be Johto, it doesn't have to be Kanto like it always is. It can be something different. You can have more Unovan forms like Galarian Darmanitan, which in my opinion was such a good Pokemon. But like you could pick a Gen 7 Pokemon, you could pick a Gen 8 Pokemon and give them regional forms. Paldean Dragapult. I don't know. I just picked a
random I think about Dragapult all the time. I think Dragapult is such a good one for a regional form. I would love to see it as like a living non-ghost water salamander. That'd be so cool.
Oh yeah.
So the third pick that we have for Paldea DLC is actually the Azores Islands. This is a series of islands to the west of Portugal, and Spain. There's a lot of islands to choose from. To me, this reminds me of Alola, but look at this image right here. This is so striking. SB had a great theory. He just kind of made the connection that this looks I think personally this just looks artificial. I think it looks like a fake crater. Maybe that was a volcano.
This island, like if you look at it, looks like it was struck with a meteor, which does happen in real life. Islands get struck by meteors, and that makes them kind of concave, brings up these ridges, and brings in a giant dip where it can fill with water like it did here. Another place where we see this in the Paldean region is the center of the map. You see a giant crater, and I'm pretty sure it's called the Great Paldean Crater or the Giant Paldean Crater. Either way, something has hit this thing really hard and really large and created a giant crater in the middle of the region. And it's, you know, probably where Paradox Pokemon are found, probably where some, you know, Pokemon you wouldn't normally see are found. It's kind of like an area shrouded in mystery and clouds like we see. I think that this was a direct inspiration from the Azores Island. I think that the Azores Island was used here and moved into the center of the region to kind of have a giant crater effect and to kind of pull in some things that aren't Portugal or Spain into the Iberian Peninsula. Yeah,
alternatively, I think the events that occurred that we witness in the mainland of Paldea, maybe a similar event also happened to the west, right? Where this actually is located. So this is a new area we go to. Maybe there's new Paradox, right? Maybe there's new Terra phenomenon. I think they could make this like a parallel ground zero for this phenomenon.
But it seems that there's not a lot of information about this third legendary. And kind of where we're going here is that the Azores Island, if it is the inspiration for this crater in the center of Paldea, and if it is a giant crater, we could actually see what caused the crater was the third legendary. I mean, it's not the first time that a third legendary has come from a different dimension or has come from space or something of that nature. I mean, Ultra Necrozma, not from this Earth.
Beautiful.
Eternatus from space. So, I mean, we could very well see for the first time ever a third legendary that doesn't even get into the story until DLC. Like, the entire first DLC could just be based around setting up the third legendary. And, like, we got hints and tastes in this story, but, like, we don't actually know what the third legendary is, its typing, what it does, what it looks like, or the power that it has until we get to DLC and it's the DLC final boss. And like the story unravels before us, and not just the story of the DLC, but the story of the Paldea region.
Yeah, I feel like the legendary encounters and a lot of the events that happened in the Crown Tundra, in the Isle of Armor, they felt very tacked on and disconnected from the rest of Sword and Shield. So to actually feel like the story truly continues into DLC, I'm all for that. It would actually make it feel like a full experience. Our fourth location is the Strait of Gibraltar. Right there. It's right there. This would basically connect all of these European regions to Africa. There's so many fan favorite countries in Africa that we could see. It all started with like a series of 4 different Japanese regions, all interconnected, right? We had all this lush lore, and then they've been doing that with the United States and now with Europe. But to see them just kind of cross over into Africa, all of a sudden we could be getting like multiple regions in Africa.
Strait of Gibraltar, that would allow some like more aquatic style gameplay, which some people really like. You know, woohoo, big Hoenn, you know, fan. But yeah,
a lot of water, seriously. Too much water, I think. Yeah.
But it would be so cool to kind of have like an aquatic DLC and kind of have some Pokemon that lead into that, and then give you just the very entry, just the very like the touch of land.
I jumped ahead a little bit.
Africa. No, but it's so good, and so like I'm just so excited because of what that can be. So naturally, as Pokemon games get bigger, or as any game continues to grow and goes on in iterations, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Paldea is the first open world game. The map is going to feel absolutely ginormous compared to Kanto. Like if you look at Kanto and Johto and then you go through Paldea, it is going to feel so huge. And we could get to the point, and this is kind of crazy to say, where a continent could be the region. They could do the entire continent of Africa and it would be absolutely gigantic. Conversely, like you said, they could do a order of regions based on Africa. You could have one based in Egypt, you could have one based in South Africa, you could have Zimbabwe, but there's just so much culture there, and there's so many cool animals. There's so many cool, like you said, landscapes, landmarks, and just each culture is so different in each country. You could very easily have a stretch of 3 to 5 regions that's just in Africa, or you could do 2, go to somewhere else, and then come back to Africa. So we like to see these things connect and how it connects to Galar, but now it could connect it down into the African continent, and there's so many options there. And you kind of in this generation, like, they typically kind of hint a little bit before, like, oh hey, you know, we might be doing this region next or soon. There's several Egyptian themed Pokemon in the Paldean decks. There's a Cleopatra ostrich, there's a psychic scarab. Like, there are Pokemon that could represent an Egyptian region, and you very well could use the Strait of Gibraltar to touch the tip of that and be like, that's it, watch out for Gen 10.
Let's dial it back to Paldea DLC. Let's talk about the Caparajah in the room. There are 2 Pokemon that we have images of, right? It depicts this like abomination, this combination of Suicune, Entei, and Raikou all in one. And there's also this version of Virizion, Cobalion, Terrakion, this abomination, just like all piled together. To me, these look like 3-way Paradox Pokemon. Leakers have confirmed that these Pokemon will appear in DLC, right? That's half the reason why we know DLC is going to return. But really, like, how are these going to be introduced? Are there more, right? Are these going to be the only ones? I think, like, where would you like these to show up?
Suicune's known to run across land masses, purifying water, going where it needs, traveling everywhere. So, like, whenever we talk about aquatic areas like the Balearic Islands, or we talk about the Strait of Gibraltar, these aquatic regions that a Pokemon that's known for purifying waters like Suicune can be found in, you could see that in this, like a Paradox form that purifies not only these small lakes that we see kind of in the anime and in the games, but like these large land masses. Like, it is trying to purify like the entire regional water source, things like that. I mean, it would be so cool to see. And Virizion, like, if you're combining all 3 of the Swords of Justice, they are based on the 3 Musketeers, and the 3 Musketeers is a book written in the country of France. So if you need to pick a place to have Virizion appear, I think it fits in so well to Southern Kalos, because again, it's based on French novelization, on French stories, French legends.
These Paradox Pokemon, specifically Virizion, feels like a myth. We know these Pokemon derive from the Unova region, but to see that they are interpreted and these stories are passed on maybe within Kalos itself, to your point, I think that's interesting and might, I don't know, that I could see that being tied up in DLC, like how we saw these legends being told about Calyrex.
Yeah, no, and I think that is something so important to utilize in DLC. Like, the reason why they aren't in the main story is because they're legends. Like, people hadn't seen Calyrex in so long, they hadn't seen Glastrier and Spectrier in so long, that to this point it had pretty much been legend. Like, it had been lost to time. And I think that's a great way to interpret it into DLC, to kind of explain why people might bring it up in the main story, to have like actual legends. I think it's a really good method of bringing in Pokemon like Paradox Suicune and Paradox Virizion, where they are like legend and haven't been seen in so long.
Yeah, I would also like a lot more information about just an expansion of lore on the 4 new Pokemon, the 4 new legendary Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet. We don't need to get too much into detail about them right now, but I do think they have a larger story to be told, and I think that's going to be revealed in DLC.
Something interesting going on with, if not the people of Paldea, the story around them, because their encounters are interesting. That's all I'm going to say on it. But the method of encounter, interesting.
And I'll say Paradox Pokemon kind of fit what I'm going to describe next. But I do kind of I like how there were new Galarian forms of the legendary bird trio. I liked that in Sword and Shield. I think, I don't know, man. I feel like Ho-Oh and Lugia would benefit greatly from a similar form, and those are still like, we're in that European region. Who's to say, like, right? Those things don't migrate down. There's some sort of relation. This is totally. I have zero evidence for this. I just feel like I like that these older legendary Pokemon got some love and got this significant revamp. And I'd like to see a similar thing. Yeah, we also saw Regieleki and Regidrago and Enamorous. Yeah, well, no, we don't talk about Enamoris. And I feel like there's room in the DLC for them to add some new, whether we call them Paldean forms or they're just like Paldean additions. These games have been really great about adding cross-generation evolutions. I think there's room there for cross-generational, additions to legendary trios, legendary quartets, things like that. I think that's also a huge thing that we could be looking at.
It doesn't even have to be a legendary trio or a quartet. I think there are some legendary Pokemon they've set up to be brought back in. Like, when and don't even get me started, because Manaphy, my favorite mythical Pokemon. I love Manaphy. Fion, I'd get out of here. But what if the reason that it doesn't evolve into Manaphy, what if the reason that it doesn't, breed with Manaphy or any of that is that it has its own evolution? Like it like Manaphy is its own thing. Closely related is Fion, or in the same family but not evolutionary, is because it requires this special item, the Eye of the Ocean or something, and it evolves into like this ocean warrior. You know what I mean? So it would bring Fion up so much from the dirt that people keep it in, because I can't think of a single person. I can't think of one person that is like, Fion, that was my favorite Gen 4 legendary. I love Fion.
You know what, man? Let's end it there. Thank you, SP, for being a part of this. Let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on YouTube at my own channel, SB Juju. I do Pokemon explanations, Pokemon theories, Pokemon gameplays. I am going to be playing Scarlet and Violet on my channel. I also host a podcast. If you like listening to podcasts and you like listening to me rant here, I do it for a full-on hour on my podcast every other week, and Dusty has been there more than once to help me my rants and my ramblings.
Yes, sir.
Definitely something to check out. Available wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube at Loafing Around. So
all the links will be in the description. Thank you so much, SB, and I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much, and good luck hunting.